Okay, chapter 4. Somewhere Adventures Live. The next morning, Tilly was sitting at the kitchen table reading her mum's copy of Anne of Green Gables when Grandad popped his head round the bookshop door. He came and gave Grandma a kiss on the cheek as she simmered gooseberries on the stove, singing under her breath along with the radio. "Oscar's here," he said to Tilly, smiling. "He says you'd promised to help him find him a book." "Oh, I didn't think he'd come," Tilly said, putting a bookmark carefully in her mum's book and placing it well out of reach of the sticky gooseberries. She headed into the shop and saw Oscar wandering between the bookshelves, trailing his fingertips along the spines of the books. Tilly watched him soak up the atmosphere of the shop for a moment. "Have you never been here before?" she asked, making Oscar jump a little. "I didn't hear you come in," he said sheepishly. "And yes, of course I've been in before. It's where Mum gets all her Christmas presents. But I've forgotten how—" He paused. "Magical?" Tilly suggested. "Exciting? Beautiful?" "Yes, but that's not what I mean. It's not what it looks like. It's how it makes you feel, isn't it? Is there a word that means somewhere adventures live?" "I don't think so, but there should be," Tilly said. "But anyway," Oscar said, collecting himself, "it's cool, is what I mean. But I haven't been in for ages. I'm not up this way much. We have someone else who looks after the cafe at the weekends, and I usually spend the school holidays with my dad." "Where does your dad live?" "In Paris with my big sister, Emile." "Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say South London or something," Tilly said. "It must be amazing to get to spend the holidays there. I've never ever been outside of England." "Yeah, I guess," Oscar said. "Paris is pretty cool, but Dad got me remarried last summer, and Margaret's really nice. But now it kind of feels like I'm visiting someone else's home when I'm there. And Emile is always out with her friends, so I decided not to go this holiday." "How come Emile lives with your dad?" Tilly asked. "She decided to go to college there," Oscar explained. "She wants to be fluent in French so she gets into university there. Her boyfriend lives in Paris too." "Do you miss them?" Tilly asked. "Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I miss my sister more than my dad, I think. Sometimes it feels like I'm in the way when I'm there. Not that I'm not wanted, but it'd be easier if I weren't there." Oscar paused. "Do you miss your parents?" he asked quietly, as though he wasn't sure if he was allowed to talk about them. "Mostly it's almost fine," said Tilly, surprising herself at how comfortable she felt talking to Oscar honestly. "But every so often I can feel the gap where they should be. It's not like that all the time, but I'm always aware of it a little bit." "What happened to them?" Oscar asked, still looking at his feet. "My dad got ill and died. I don't know many of the details. He had to go abroad for work. He got ill. He died before he could get home. We don't really know what happened to my mum. She left really soon after I was born without telling Grandma and Grandad or anyone where she was going, and she never came back. We haven't heard from her since." "Whoa, that's something from like a TV show," Oscar said before stopping. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. It must be horrible. Do you really not know anything?" Tilly shrugged. "She didn't leave a note or anything. The police think that maybe she had a postnatal depression and she ran away and is living a completely new life somewhere else. They said she might try to make contact at some point, but that I shouldn't get my hopes up." Do you think about your parents a lot?" "Kind of. It's funny because I can't remember them at all, so it's hard to miss them or feel sad about them in a very specific way. It's like feeling sad that you never had a diamond ring or a unicorn. I feel sad about the idea of them and knowing that they're not here. And I hate that I don't understand why Mum left, but I don't really have any memories of them as real people. I have this, though." Tilly pulled out her necklace from under her jumper and showed Oscar. The small gold bead was no bigger than the nail on Tilly's thumb. "Was that your mum's?" Oscar asked. "No, it's mine, but she had one just the same. Hers was a present from my dad, and when I was born she had one made for me too." Tilly tucked it back into her jumper. The shop phone suddenly started ringing and made them both jump. "Anyway, I've never really told anyone else about all of that," Tilly said a little awkwardly. "I'm glad," Oscar started, but Tilly cut him off. "Let's find a book for English. I need a new one too." Oscar nodded and followed her up the stairs to the children's floor. Tilly picked out a pile of books for Oscar that she knew were printed on a different kind of paper that made it easier for people with dyslexia to read, and placed them in front of him with a flourish. While Oscar flicked through them, she went to find a little princess and realized the shop stocked several different editions. She looked through some of the different covers, wishing she had the chance to talk to her mum about the book. She was sliding the various editions back onto the shelf when, after careful consideration, Oscar settled onto a slim book with a black cover and a creepy illustration on the front. They took it downstairs where Grandad put it in a canvas tote bag stamped with the Pages & Co. logo and refused to let Oscar pay for it. "It's a pleasure to have you in Pages & Co., Grandad said. "Special offer for friends of the shop." Oscar thanked Grandad and gave Tilly an awkward wave before making his way back across the road to Crumbs. Tilly headed upstairs to her reading nook, but when she turned the corner she saw that her sofa was already occupied with a girl with red pigtails. She looked up at Tilly as she approached and sighed dramatically. "I know what you must be thinking," she said in an accent that Tilly couldn't place. "You're thinking what a dreadful burden it must be for a girl who's already so skinny to be forced to endure red hair as well." "I wasn't thinking that at all," Tilly said. "I was just wondering what you were doing on my sofa." "I'm so awfully sorry," the girl said, jumping up and haphazardly straightening the cushions. "I didn't know it was yours." "I mean, it's not really," Tilly said, realizing that she must have seemed rude. "It's just where I like to sit and read, and you surprised me. I hadn't noticed you when I was up here with a boy from school." "Oh, I know that feeling," the girl said, smiling. "I have a tree that is laden with the most beautiful, sweet-smelling, pale pink blossom that I like to read under." The girl's face suddenly morphed into a look of horror. "But can you ever forgive me?" "Forgive me for what?" Tilly said, thoroughly flummoxed at the change in tone. "My horrible manners. I haven't introduced myself. My name is Anne with an E." "With an E?" Tilly repeated hazily. "Yes, the E is ever so important. People are always telling me that the name is much the same with or without the E, but I think those people are severely lacking in imagination. How could you ever think that Anne without an E was the same as Anne with an E? It's like saying that dessert is the same as desert. But there I go again with my terrible manners. I haven't even asked what your name is." "Oh, wait, let me guess. You look like an Emmeline, or maybe a Penelope," she added, sounding hopeful. "It's just Tilly, I'm afraid, short for Matilda. Matilda Pages." "Why, that is a lovely name, and I'm quite envious," Anne said, looking entirely delighted. "I'm so thrilled to meet you." "Are you looking for a book?" Tilly asked. "That sounds wonderful, thank you," Anne said. "Autumn is the most magical time of the year for reading, don't you think?" She gestured towards the window, which framed only drizzle and grey skies, but Anne reacted as though she could see auburn leaves tumbling in the wind. "October is my absolute favourite month, and to read outside with the sun dappling." "Do you think the dappling is a real word, Tilly?" "I think it must be, don't you? With the sun dappling and the leaves of a tree, a glass of raspberry cordial at hand." She tailed off, staring dreamily into nothing. Tilly began to find the silence a little awkward, but struggled to think of something to say, and so returned to her fail-safe question. "What's your favourite story?" she asked, jerking Anne out of her autumnal daydreams. "Do stories you've made up yourself count?" asked Anne. "I don't think so," said Tilly. "I think they have to be, well, proper stories, like in a book." Okay, we're going to stop there. So we've been introduced to another character, and that is Anne. And I reckon it could be linked to the story and of Green Gables, the book that Tilly keeps picking up that we keep being introduced to. We'll soon find out. If you have any predictions, then email them to me and we can share them and talk about them in the next video. Okay, I hope you're keeping safe. Speak to you soon.